Hi there, village voyagers. Welcome back to Musicland Stories, the origin point for all music and adventure stories in the known universe, and some of the unknown ones. And we're here at the Musicland Concert Hall. I'm the Charmer. And on our last journey together through this magical jungle, Guanina made a new friend, Tainy, a basketball-sized spider who, with his 8 legs and appetite for the new, created reggaeton music. Now, Guanina has a traveling buddy. Sure, he's a bit full of himself, but it's better than continuing her quest alone. And he did just come up with a pretty catchy new rhythm, so he's not all that bad. Heading out from the village of La Prola together, Guanina and Tainy walked along an old abandoned forest trail. Tainy was bursting with pride.
That was quite the show I put on. Those people won't soon forget this little spider.
Well, I'm sure they wouldn't have forgotten you. I think they would remember the huge talking spider, Guanina said with a barely concealed smile.
I suppose you're right. In any case, where to next?
I'm not sure. So far, I've just been bumping into people, or more often, singing animals of all... Ugh! Guanina bumped into something, or perhaps someone, and fell onto the jungle floor. Tainy, who had been walking next to her, turned and saw a pile of white feathers at her feet. Tainy rushed over, pushing Guanina's feet and the underbrush aside. There lay a bird as white as a cloud in the sky at midday. Guanina was just then getting up.
You know, you could have given me a hand. First, I don't actually have hands. Second, look, you tripped on this strange creature.
Guanina crouched down next to it. It was clearly a bird, but unlike any Guanina or Tainy had ever seen. It was covered in feathers, but they were so delicate and so fine that they felt and resembled hair more than anything else. The bird's beak, very small and stubby, was hidden behind tufts of feathers, so it looked like it didn't have a nose or a mouth. And its eyes, closed as if it were sleeping, were hidden behind tiny horizontal slits. All in all, it looked as if its face were a blank canvas, with only 2 small black lines painted on it. Guanina placed her hand on the bird.
It's still breathing. Maybe we should take him with us. Someone might be able to help him. And how do you know he needs help?
Tainy asked.
I don't. But birds don't usually hang out on the ground unless they're hurt or lost. And this bird doesn't look like he's from around here.
Guanina reached under the bird and started to lift it off the ground when it let out a horrible, high-pitched shriek and started to flap its wings. Try as he might, though, the bird could not fly. Guanina could see one of his wings was badly injured.
Calm down now, birdie. I don't want to hurt you. We just want to help,
Guanina said in a sweet, soothing tone.
Speak for yourself. I didn't say anything about helping your little birdie. It's a dog-eat-dog jungle, and if it can't fend for itself...
The bird opened its eyes impossibly wide, revealing 2 yellow discs with large black dots in the middle.
Who called me a little birdie?
The creature said in a low voice that seemed to have its own echo.
Oh, you talk too, of course.
Well, of course I do. If I were you, I'd be more surprised about the hairy walking ball.
Believe me, I was surprised.
Guanina replied.
Hold on there,
Said Tainy.
I thought we had gotten past that by now. Sorry, Tainy. I'm just being honest with our new friend. What's your name?
My name is Flaco, and I'm a snowy owl.
A snowy owl? What does that mean?
Guanina inquired.
What do you mean, what does that mean? I'm an owl that lives in the snow.
Look, Flaco, repeating the same words back at us isn't getting us anywhere.
Tainy said.
What is an owl and what is snow?
This went on for a while, until Guanina and Tainy more or less thought they understood owls and snow. Of course, they had never seen either. Flaco, for his part, had never seen a jungle, a giant spider, or the tons of bugs, insects, and creepy crawlers that buzzed around him. Guanina still had questions.
So, you said you're from where?
New York City. I'm from New York City. I was perched on a beautiful, spacious branch with lots of sun and amazing views of Central Park when a storm blew in and I got caught up in the middle of it. Suddenly, I was going round and round, then a flash of light, and somehow I ended up here.
Wow, New York City. Never heard of it.
Tainy said.
So, a city is like a big village?
Guanina asked.
Yeah, sure. A big village. Look, if you'll just point me in the right direction, I'm sure I'll find my way back on my own.
Flaco, you need help if you're going to get home. Your wing seems pretty hurt. Tainy, do you have anyone who could help?
Guanina asked.
I might know someone, but his methods are unusual. His name is Dr. Salsa.
Dr. Salsa? What kind of a name is Dr. Salsa?
Asked Flaco.
Look, if you've got another idea, go right ahead. I have better things to do.
Tainy replied, now quite tired of this snooty bird. Realizing he didn't really have a choice, Flaco agreed to see Dr. Salsa, whose medical skills and credentials were, in fact, a bit of a mystery. Tainy led the way. Guanina followed close behind, carrying Flaco in her arms. As they walked, the sound of a distant waterfall played a soothing melody, accompanied by the rhythmic tapping of Tiny's many feet on the leaf-strewn path.
We're not far now,
Tainy assured them. Flaco, nestled in Guanina's arms, looked around with wide-eyed curiosity. The stuffy city owl would never admit it, but he was fascinated by the lush greenery and the exotic calls of unseen animals. The trail began to descend, winding down towards a small valley. Suddenly, Tainy halted.
Here we are,
He announced. Before them, on the edge of a pond, stood a large, oddly shaped hut, covered in a mosaic of colorful leaves and vines that swayed gently in the breeze. The air here was alive with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth. As they approached, they began hearing the music, a lively rhythm that made the ground underfoot throb in time with the beat. The doorway of the hut was draped with strings of flowers that danced to the same rhythm.
Dr. Salsa's clinic is also his dance studio,
Tainy explained, his voice tinged with excitement.
He believes in healing through happiness, and there's nothing happier than a good dance.
Flaco rolled his eyes all the way to the back of his head. Just then, A figure emerged from the hut. Dr. Salsa was a sight to behold, with feathers of every color imaginable woven into his hair and a pair of brightly colored spectacles perched on his nose. His feet moved with such speed and precision that they were almost a blur, keeping time with the infectious music that seemed to emanate from the very walls of his home. "Welcome, welcome," he called out, his voice as vibrant as his attire. "I see we have new friends, and one in need of a little tune-up, eh?" Tiny bowed slightly, an oddly formal gesture for such an informal setting.
Dr. Salsa, this is Guanina and Flaco. Flaco has had a bit of an accident.
Dr. Salsa clapped his hands, and the music seemed to pause for a moment. "An accident, you say? Well, let's take a look. But first, a proper welcome. In this place, we start with the salsa."
Salsa?
Flaco asked, now truly worried that he'd placed his health in Dr. Salsa's care. With a flourish, Dr. Salsa extended his hands, inviting them into the rhythm-filled world of his jungle clinic. "Salsa, my fine feathered friend, is not just a dance. It's a way of life here," he exclaimed. "Before I can treat your wing, we must sync our heart with the jungle's rhythm. And there's no better way than salsa," Dr. Salsa announced, turning the music back on with a snap of his fingers. Guanina, balancing Flaco carefully, stepped forward, her feet already catching the beat. Even Tainy's 8 feet began to tap along. Dr. Salsa led them through a series of basic salsa steps. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, he counted loudly over the music. Flaco, supported by Guanina, tried his best to follow along, with one good wing fluttering slightly as he moved. "Excellent! Now, let's try a turn," Dr. Salsa instructed. Guanina helped Flaco spin gently, being careful with his injured wing. Tainy, now fully caught up in the music, attempted a more complicated spin, almost tangling his legs but recovering with a laugh. "Music and dance are the heartbeats of healing," Dr. Salsa explained as they danced. "Each step and turn brings energy to your spirit, which helps the body heal." Finally, breathing heavily but smiling, they came to a stop. Dr. Salsa clapped his hands in approval. "Bravo! You are all natural dancers. Now let's see about that wing," he said, turning his attention to Flaco. Guanina carefully laid Flaco down on a makeshift exam table. Dr. Salsa examined Flaco's wing with a gentle touch. "It's a simple sprain, but it needs care," Dr. Salsa diagnosed. "A little rest, some of my special herbal wraps, and continued movement to the rhythm of salsa will have you back in the skies in no time." Flaco, who had been anxious about his condition, finally relaxed, a small smile breaking across his beak.
Thank you, Dr. Salsa. I guess a bit of a dance really does have healing powers,
he said. "Indeed it does," Dr. Salsa chuckled, beginning to apply a vibrant green paste to Flaco's wing. "But remember, the rhythm of the dance must continue in your heart, even after the music stops." Flaco, Tainy, and Guanina stayed in the good doctor's hut the rest of the afternoon. They listened to old salsa songs, kept practicing their turns and kicks, and Flaco's health slowly improved. By the end of the day, he was back in tip-top shape.
I should be heading back. I'm sweating quite a bit under these feathers. but I have had a grand old time with all of you. And this music, salsa, I think I'll bring it back with me to my big village. It might just catch on there.
Flaco said.
I think I'll bring it back to my little village as well,
Guanina interjected. After their farewells, Flaco flew off back to the city all on his own. Or so he thought. He was actually going to need some help. Remember that flash of light he'd mentioned? That was me. I had him go through a portal from your universe to Guanina's. I mean, how else was I going to introduce Salsa to New York? So another portal jump, and Flaco was back in Central Park, humming to the tune of Salsa and inspiring a whole generation of performers with his new tropical beat. And Guanina? Well, she's due for another musical adventure. So, until next time, my village voyagers, this is your salsa dancing jungle charmer. Musicland Stories is a collaboration between Starglow Media and Double Elvis. Executive producers from Double Elvis are Jake Brennan and Brady Sadler. Executive producers from Starglow Media are Jed Baker and Agreinish A. Palmer. This episode of Musicland Stories was written by Armando Valdez Prieto. Alessandro Santoro is our showrunner. Narration by me, Nikki Lynette. Original score by Jonathan Warman. Story editing by Zeph Lundy. An episode mix by Colin Fleming. Grown-ups, you can find more ad-free audio fun for the whole family by subscribing to Starglow Plus on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts.